Shalom, giving all praise to Yahweh Shem Shai B'Shem Kakodash. And I'm going to entitle this video, Biden. That's called World War III. And this is a quote that he made. It was on the news early. I was on the road trying to get some shekels. And I have XM radio, so I had it on CNN. And they kept playing this, looping this statement that he made over and over. I believe it was at a news conference. He's before the podium, and someone asked to the effect of will we be sending troops in? And he immediately said, no, because that would be World War III. So he knows what can happen. See, when the U.S. fights another foe, another enemy, another country, sovereign nation, you have to know that you're going to beat that nation. That's even in the scriptures. You know, that's, let me see if I can find that. I'm positive it's in the book of Matthew. Let me do it this way. Count the course. Let's see what comes up on this. Okay, let me try it on a New King James. Okay, that's it. It's Luke 14, verse 28. But I wanted to get this in the King James. Luke 14, 28. Bear with me for a minute. Okay, it says, Luke 14, verse 28, for which of you intending to build a tower sitteth not down first and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish? Let me do this. I'm trying to get the one, the military, the war. Let's see if it comes up. Okay, it doesn't come up here. Let me put in war. Let me try. Bear me for a minute. I didn't know I was going to look for this one. I'm narrowing it down. Okay, this is Luke 14, verse 31. So it was in the same, it was a couple of verses down because I read from the 28th verse. It says Luke 14:31, or what king going to make war against another king? So the kings in this case is Biden. He's the king of Babylon, the king of America. And then you have Putin, which is the king of God, the Magog, Meshach, and Tubal. So these are two kingdoms, these are two empires. So Biden used wisdom in making a statement that he made. He said, look, if we go to war, a superpower against another superpower, that's World War III. It says, or what king going to make war against another king sitteth not down first and consulteth whether he be able with 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000. So when you realize that the army that you're planning on going up against, it has double the military, you might want to sit down and negotiate. And see, that's what Zelensky, whatever his name is, the president of the Ukraine. Basically, he had his people agree to a suicide pact, because if the Russian armies showed their true power, they can wipe the place out. You know, and they're not even dealing with ICBM missiles, supersonic missiles. They haven't sent their MiG fighters. So Zelensky, Kalinsky, whatever his name is, he just pretty much signed a suicide pact with his people, because ultimately they're going to be wiped out. And this is why the U.S. is sending them arms, money. And like I said, let me come back to the articles. Where the hell are we? I hate this. Okay, I found it. So what I put in Biden WW3, and this is what came up. And see, if he's been watching us on YouTube, or he knows about us, the Israelites, which he has to know, he knows that they're going to lock horns in what he calls a World War III, which is a war of Armageddon. They got this, they're calling up their scholars and their pastors and their scripture men, you know, concerning prophecy. And these Edomites are believing in prophecy now, because, you know, we're at the brink of a World War III. There's an acronym, MAD, mutual assured destruction. If you have two major powers at war, they're going to bring out the big guns, which is the ICBMs, and that's going to be the end of both empires. And all kind of precepts, we done went through these precepts over and over again concerning the destruction. You know, one precept come to mind is Isaiah chapter 13, Isaiah 34, Joel, the 3rd chapter, Joel, the 2nd chapter, certain chapters in the book of Revelation. So we know all these precepts. You done heard them all before. But guess what? These precepts that we've been going through the years are getting ready to come to pass, are getting ready to be fulfilled. So for all of you that, you know, turn your back on the plow and went back into the world and lost your faith, this is not the time to lose faith. This is the time to be on fire, and you were supposed to always be on fire. Spring is another couple of weeks away, going into summer. Watch how many camps you're gonna see out there. See, when the winter comes, the camps hibernate. But we out there, no matter what weather it is. And this winter's been a super mild winter. I was sick as a dog about 2 months ago. And I went out. I was sick for a couple of weeks. When you get sick, you feel it coming on, and it slowly comes on, and a week later, you're full-blown sick. And I had to go out there, even in that condition. And when the sickness goes away, you feel it going away, but it takes time for it to go away, and eventually you're whole again. So, what's your excuse? You come in this thing to do the work. The Lord said in St. John chapter 4, the disciples said, we're going to get some meat. Do you want meat? Do you want some meat? He said, I have meat you know not of. And he said, my meat is to do the will of him that sent me and to finish his work. So this is the time to get serious. You were supposed to always be serious about this thing. And push out this gospel for the people out there. We always doing videos. Me, I go into a lot of videos dealing with prophecy, because that's the time that we're living in. When the Most High woke us up, he woke us up so we can prophesy. That's the main thing on the main agenda on the Most High's list. Tell you of things to come before they come. So it says the Hill, Biden, direct conflict between NATO and Russia would be World War III. New York Post. That's called World War III. And this is what he said, Biden on moving troops into Ukraine. Somebody asked him, what about moving U.S. troops into Ukraine? So he said, that's called World War III. You don't want World War III, because that's the end of both empires. New York Post, that's called World War III. Biden defends the decision not to send jets to Ukraine, because that would be considered a declaration of war. BBC, Ukraine, latest news. Biden warns U.S. intervention in Ukraine would mean World War III. This is on YouTube. I put in Biden WW3, and speech came up. It's 2 hours ago. Biden says, world must strive to prevent World War III. So his brain is working after all. Biden, sending American offensive equipment to Ukraine would be World War III. What does it say in Matthew 24? Wars and rumors of war. You go back about a month and a half, maybe a little longer, and that's been on the news, along with the Crown Vic, they were talking about, will Russia actually invade the Ukraine? So as of, what is it, today or tomorrow, this would have been 2 weeks, 14 days since the USSR declared war. And it's an act of war. It's a declaration of war against the people of Ukraine. They've been talking about NATO quite a bit. And we did videos on NATO. We told you who NATO is. Or what NATO is. NATO is a North Atlantic Treaty Organization, but in the scriptures it's identified as the beast. You know, you got the first beast, which is the Roman Empire, and then you have the rising from the dead, the second beast, which is America, NATO, and the EU. And we've been saying that whether you believe this or not, you can clearly see it. Biden sending American offensive equipment to Ukraine would be World War III. Like I said in a previous video, you notice when the Russians declared war against the Ukraine, the Crown Vic just went out the window. They don't even speak about it no more. Biden, direct confrontation between Russia and NATO is World War III. This was all 4 hours ago, 2 hours ago, 7 hours ago. Oh, wow. This is from 4 years ago, and this is Joe Biden. Joe Biden believes U.S. is closer than ever to nuclear war. That's why he doesn't want to engage with the Russians. If it was a weaker nation, they would have went on in there and blasted them out. And that was 4 years ago. Biden, this is 1 month ago, before the Russians actually shot their first missile, rocket, whatever you want to call it. It said Biden warns of world war should U.S. and Russia engage in firefight over Ukraine. Now, he said that a month ago. Watch U.S. President Joe Biden talks tough on Russia and China. He ain't talking tough no more. Here it is again. Biden won't, this is breaking news as of today. Biden won't send U.S. troops to Ukraine. That's World War III. Boy, this was more than a week ago, 11 days ago, Russia-Ukraine conflict. Biden says he won't start another world war. Well, guess what? Man's goings are of the Lord, so how can a man then understand his own way? If you don't make the action, the Most High put the spirit on Putin to make that action. So, we're down to the wire. Let me give you a couple of precepts. And these precepts are precepts I know, we all know by heart. I'm basically singing to the choir. So for you newer individuals out there, if you don't know and you're not sure, these are a handful of scriptures dealing with, you know what, let me do this. Let me go to the Apocrypha. Because about a week or so ago, I did a video on 2nd Ezra, chapter 15. This is the last book of 2nd Ezra, which is chapter 16. And we'll read, let's see how far we get with this here. Okay, it says, first verse, woe be unto thee, Babylon. Now we know it's talking about America and Asia. Woe be unto thee, Egypt and Syria. So who's going to be involved in this war? Well, Russia, of course, and the states that Putin brings back together to form that union, assembly of great nations from the north. And the scripture says, the Most High mustereth the host of the battle. It says in Isaiah 14 that the dead is going to rouse up the chief ones of the earth. It's talking about these leaders. And ultimately, all these countries that possess nuclear weapons, they're going to all use them on Babylon the Great. And that's Revelation 17, verse 12 on down. I don't know what's going to happen, but something's going to happen where the European allies or the NATO nations shall come against the U.S. It says, gird up yourself with cloth of sack and hair, bewail your children. And when it says gird up yourself with cloth of sack and hair, meaning the sackcloth. It says in Revelation 11 chapter, we will prophesy, and the two prophets, which represents the prophets of now, will prophesy in sackcloth. It says, bewail your children and be sorry, for your destruction is at hand. The destruction of who? Number one on the list is Babylon. These other nations that will be involved, they will be part of their land will be destroyed, but the land will be built back up. Babylon the Great will never be built back up because it's going to be a memorial, a Zion, or to Zion, which means monument, so we can remember that's the place that we caught hell in. America, amargo, which means bitter. It says, gird up yourself with cloth of sack and hair, bewail your children and be sorry, for your destruction is at hand. Why do you think the Most High, you turn around, you go to YouTube, you got all kind of Israelites out there not just GMS, but you got all kind of Israelites out there going into the scriptures, telling Esau that he's the Edomites, that he descended from a man named Esau, the first of the Edomites. And when we go out there and tell Esau that, he watches the videos. At first, he bucks up against it, but now it makes sense. Even a woman called the Alex Jones show, and I guess it was on the band video. That's Alex Jones' page. He got his own platform. And some woman that sounded like an Edomite basically said that America's going to be destroyed because of the Edomite behavior. Now, if somebody has that video, you can put it in my description, in my comment section, in the premiere, or in the video, on the comment section under the video, so other people can see it. And we've been telling them, man, Biden is trying to keep back from going to war, but he's going to go to war. This place is going to, Armageddon will take place. A sword is sent upon you, and who may turn it back? And that sword is what? A fiery sword, which are the ICBMs and the other missiles, long-range missiles, supersonic missiles, intercontinental ballistic missiles. What does it say in Job, the 20th chapter? It speaks about the iron weapon and the bow of steel. The bow of steel, and it cometh out the body, the silo. Because as we know, the Bible is written in hip talk, symbolism, parabolic, poetic. It says a sword is sent upon you, and who may turn it back? You can't turn back an ICBM missile, a supersonic missile. Once it comes out the silo, there's no technology to turn it back. It's going to do its damage. A fire is sent among you, and who may quench it? Plagues are sent unto you, and what is he that may drive them away? Let me try something here. Okay, so in Jeremiah 50, verse 9 and verse 14, you see the word arrows. It said, for lo, I will rise and cause to come up against Babylon, America, an assembly of great nations. So Putin is in the process of bringing those nations back under the power of the former Soviet Union, the USSR. from the North Country. The North Country is the uttermost north. We went through this many times. And they shall set themselves in array against her. Against who? Babylon the Great. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows, ICBMs, shall be as of a mighty expert man, none shall return in vain. So when you come back here, right, it says none shall return in vain, right? Third verse and fourth verse, 2nd Ezra 16, a sword is sent upon you, and who may turn it back? A fire is sent among you, and who may quench it? It says, their arrows shall be as a mighty expert man, none shall return in vain. So each and every one of those arrows or missiles, they're going to all do damage. There's not going to be no duds among those missiles. There's not going to be any of those missiles that's going to go off course. There's not going to be any of those missiles that's going to explode in the sky. Why? Because the Most High is going to be in the missiles. His spirit is going to guide those missiles. The 14th verse, Jeremiah 50, verse 14. But yourselves, put yourself in array against Babylon round about. So I said a couple of minutes ago, I quoted or I mentioned Revelation 17 and 12, which represent the EU, which represent all the European allies of the US. They're all going to come against Babylon. They're all going to shoot their missiles on Babylon. That includes merry old England. Give me a second. And I'm almost positive. Well, let me do this. Let me do this. Let me do it this way. I don't know if that's going to come up. Oh, it didn't come up. Let me try it this way. Bear me for a minute. Let me just finish reading this. Put yourself in array against Babylon round about, all ye that bend the bow, shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she hath sinned against Yahweh. For thy sins have reached unto heaven. Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, for her sins have reached unto heaven. Isaiah 50, verse 12. I'll start at 11. Because ye were glad, because ye rejoice, O ye destroyers of mine heritage. They destroyed the Israelites. Daniel 7 said they wore out the saints of the Most High. Because ye are grown fat as the heifer at grass and bellow as bulls. Your mother, which is Great Britain, because who spawned America? Great Britain, the 13 original colonies. And the beast was not formed yet because Great Britain is a member of the beast, NATO, formerly the EU. Spain and France, which they had three, the US had 3 wars with the French, the Spanish, and the British. So they wasn't formed. That wasn't the beast. They were fighting against each other. Revelation 6. So when did the beast come about? 1948, 49. 49, they received the charter, which is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And then 57, 58, which was about 9, 10 years later, was the forming of the EU. And like I said, I've been through this. I went through this. I did videos on this, lessons on this time and time again. Like I said, for you out there that been in this truth, for 13, 14, 15 years, I'm singing to the choir. But we're definitely living in a time of this destruction, man. That's why Biden was quick to say, well, one of the articles that was 4 years ago, he said we've never been so closer to world war. And like I said today, he kept saying the same thing. That would be called World War III. So the man ain't as slow or old as he looks. He knows what can happen. It says, 12th verse, your mother shall be sore confounded. She that bare you shall be ashamed. Behold, the hindermost part of the nation shall be a wilderness, a dry land, and a desert. The hindermost part of the nations is talking about America. That's why this place is called the West. It's going to be a wilderness, a dry land, and a desert because it's going to be destroyed by these missiles. I mean, if you can't see that Jeremiah 50 and Jeremiah 51 is not talking about the destruction of Babylon, and you think it's talking about ancient Babylon didn't go out like this. It was called a surgical strike. Jump over to and the small hats are going to lead them to this destruction. The least of them shall draw them out. Jeremiah 49. Jeremiah 41, Jeremiah 51, verse 1. Thus saith the Lord power, behold, I will raise up against Babylon, America, and against them that dwell in the midst of them. That means these other nations that live in America, Jake that loves America, that's joining their military, working for them, getting ready to take the MOTB, you're going to be destroyed. In the midst of them that rise up against me, a destroying wind. What is that destroying wind? The fallout from when the missiles hit ground zero. And I will send unto Babylon fanners that shall fan her and shall empty her land, for in the day of trouble, Jacob's trouble, because guess what? Jacob's trouble is also Esau's trouble. They shall be against her round about. Third verse, against him that bendeth, let the archer which is the one that controls the missile and silo, bend his bow, and against him that lifteth himself up in his brigandine, and spare ye not her young men, destroy ye utterly all her hosts. When you look up that word brigandine, you have brigadier generals, right? Brigandine means armor, armaments. A coat of mail. So that means something that protects you. And new Nahum, the third chapter tells you they're not going to be protected. Wait for a minute. Says Nineveh's complete ruin. Nineveh is also a name for Babylon the Great. Nahum 3 verse 4, because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot, the harlot is well-favored because it committed fornication with these other nations. The mistress of witchcraft, this is talking about America. Babylon the Great, mother of harlots and the abomination of the earth. Numerically, in the Hebrew, it adds up to 666. That selleth nations through her whoredoms and families through her witchcraft. Because Esau's power comes from the left-hand side. Yet when she carried away and went into captivity, that was Jake, that was us. And we went off, and the Most High, really put hell on us for centuries and centuries and centuries. So if he did it to us, do you think he's going to spare the wicked? They're going to get it worse than we got it. Nahum 3 verse 11, thou also shalt be drunken, thou shalt be hid, thou also shalt seek strength because of the enemy. All their enemies right now is Russia, Gog, the Scythians, the Rush. All thy strongholds shall be like fig trees. What is your stronghold? Your brigandine, your armor, your defense. Your defenses are going to be wide open. With the first ripe figs, If they be shaken, they shall fall, even fall into the mouth of the eater. Behold, thy people in the midst of thee are women. And let me say this. These men, American men, are soft. They're weak. Good times make weak men. Them Russians and them you got the Russian military, you got the Chechenians, which they love war, and I believe they're direct descendants of the Scythians. And then you have the people of Ukraine, which is part of the former Soviet Union. So they're nothing but Russians. They're fellow Russians. What's going on right now is a civil war, and they're not going to say that. That's a civil war because Ukraine is part of that landmass called Russia. What took place years back was a thing called balkanization. Look that up. So, you know, the American man, he don't want to go fight. He don't want to go. He don't want to put a fatigues on and whatever rifle, whether it be M16s, AKs, whatever they deal with. They don't want to look. When you go to war, there's a good chance you're going to die. You might kill a number of people, but eventually you're going to get killed. In a major war, there you have high casualties. And the American men, they're living too good, especially you Edomites. And then you simple ass Jakes, you want to go fight this man's battle, and you should ask yourself, why are you here in this country in the first place? So if U.S. troops are sent over there, which they're over there now, they're in Poland. They're in Poland because Poland is a member of NATO. I don't know if they're a member of the EU, but you have U.S. troops already over there. Because if Russia touches Poland, then America would have no choice but to enter the war, which they already declared war by supplying Ukraine. So you're in a situation now where you got to stand your ground. Putin is standing his ground. The Most High's got the spirit on Putin. Putin. And now Biden has to stand his ground. And he made a wise statement today in saying that we're not planning on sending no U.S. troops in there because that would basically, that's World War III. Because everybody would lose. There are no winners in a nuclear war. It says, 13 verse again, behold, thy people in the midst of thee are women, weak. And then you have women in the military. What in the hell is a woman going to do in the military in an actual war? So guess what? They're going to have to, if this thing is dragged out and it remains a ground war, where you got the infantry, you got people in the field fighting, tanks and so forth. Women are not built for war. That movie, G.I. Jane, was a fucking movie. It was a fantasy. Like Wonder Woman. Remember the fucking fantasy. The gates of thy land shall be set wide open, meaning you're not going to have a missile defense system to protect you, set wide open unto thine enemies, which right now are, are the Russians, Gog, Gog, Magog, Meshach, Tubal, Britannia, Espanola, Germania, the Hellenes, the Greeks. It says the fire shall devour thy bars, your defense system, your brigandine. '15 verse. There shall the fire devour thee, the sword shall cut thee off. What sword? The missiles. It shall eat thee up like the cankerworm. Make thyself many as a cankerworm, make thyself many as a locust. Now the locust is a reference. There's a reference of the locust in Revelation, the 9th chapter. Thou hast 16 verse, thou hast multiplied thy merchants above the stars. Merchants mean sellers. So people became rich from other countries from selling their merchandise to America. That's what Revelation 18 is all about. When they stood afar off and they wept, they put dust upon their head, which is an ancient custom. And they're going to mourn because they're not going to make no more money like they make, because America, Babylon the Great, is nothing but a nation of consumers. That's why they came up with the inventions of the credit card, because they know your psyche. They know that if you don't have money, you'll use whatever you use to get certain things that you covered after. You know, you go into debt. Yeah, this place is done, man. I mean, gas. If shit, I'm driving around looking for gas, and I saw this one station that said 417, and that was like a bargain compared to, I was in New Jersey earlier, and back in the day, Jersey was always like $1 cheaper than New York. So you wouldn't gas up in New York. You wait to get over the bridge or whatever, and the GW, and you'll hit your first station, your gas station. What is that? 40, I think that's 46, Route 46. That's in Fort Lee. The first gas station you would hit, it was always, if it was like 220 in New York, it would be closer to like, could be like $1.50 something. And you would gas up, you would fill up your tank. Guess what? In New Jersey, the fucking prices for gas are higher than the prices in New York. You know, your food, everything. When you go to restaurants now, within I'd say the last 2 years, things been going up, 25 cents here, 50 cents here. Then in recent months, it jumped $1. Certain places I went to get like a meal that might cost $13 or whatever. Now it's $14.50. It's called inflation. So all these precepts that I've been going through, like I said, Joel, Isaiah 13, Joel 2, Joel 3, or Daniel 7 and 9, that's talking about Jacob's trouble. Revelation 12. See, we've gone through these precepts so much, we know them by heart. You know, these prophetic scriptures. And, you know, the fact that I've been in this thing for so long and other men been in this thing for so long, and some of you sisters are coming into this thing. Now your faith and your hard work is paying off. So now you can look forward to a reward, a crown on your head, a throne and a scepter. It's beautiful, beautiful. Let me go to Joel 2. Joel 2 and 1. Blow ye the trumpet in Zion and sound an alarm. When we go out there on the highways and the byways, when we do these sit downs, what are we doing? We're blowing a trumpet in Zion. Zion is another name for Israel. And sound an alarm. What alarm are we sounding? You got to wake up to the fact that you're Israelite. You know, you got to learn the law, statutes, and commandments. You got to accept Yahweh Shai. You got to begin to keep the high holy days. You got to, you know, put on your beautiful garments, meaning your nationality. Ezekiel 37. That's what that's all about. Bone to his bone, sinews, and flesh is your covering. Your who you are as a people. So it says sound an alarm. Like if you sleep through that alarm, you're gonna die. The enemy's gonna get you. Let me look up the word alarm. The word there is rawai. To shout, raise a sound, cry out, give a blast. To shout a war cry or alarm of battle, to sound a signal for war or march, to shout in triumph over the enemies, to shout in applause, to shout with religious impulse, to cry out in distress. And what we're doing, we're crying out in distress because we're under the oppression of Esau. The physical counterpart of the spiritual demon, Satan. Okay, let me come back. Joel 2, verse 1. And by the way, High Priest Ariah would teach this and say that this is talking about Israelites, Jakes, climbing inside the Edomites' windows and putting them to death. And they ain't talking about that. It never sat with me when he taught that. It says, blow ye the trumpet in Zion and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. The Lord's holy mountain is a people before it's a place. And if you want to talk about Mount Sinai, the holy mount where Moses received the commandments, guess where the Ark of the Covenant is? It's also in Mount Sinai. in a cave. Jeremiah put it there. And nobody could get to it. It says, let all the inhabitants of the land tremble. The land is talking about singular. The land is talking about Babylon. Isaiah 13, to destroy the whole land. For the day of Yahweh cometh, for it is nigh at hand. Let's go back to Biden. Oh, no, we're not going to send any U.S. troops on the offensive level, because that's called World War III. So the man's mind is working. He knows what can happen if he sends troops over there. But they're gonna lock horns any damn way. Because all prophecies must be fulfilled. It says a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong. Now, the great people and the strong is not talking about actual people, it's talking about missiles. There have not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. Because these missiles have been built up to do one thing and one thing only. That's to destroy this place. And then these missiles will never be heard of again. There won't be no need for missiles. There's not going to be no war. Nations shall learn war no more. A fire. There goes the word fire again. Devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. So Joel saw the same thing that Isaiah saw, the same thing that John, the apostle saw on the Isle of Patmos, the same thing that Ezra saw. The land is as a garden of Eden, meaning the land, you're going to see trees. Joel saw the vision of America. You had buildings, you had trees, you had grass, you had parks. Before them, before who? The missiles. And behind them, once those missiles hit ground zero, what is it going to leave behind? It said behind them a desolate wilderness, which is America after the smoke is cleared. Yea, and nothing shall escape them. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and that's a reference to, you can go to Revelation, the 9th chapter, the 200,000 that John saw? Those were missiles. And as horsemen, so shall they run, like the noise of chariots on the tops of the mountains, which are the governments, shall they leap like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. And that strong people set in battle array are these missiles. In the book of Isaiah, the 34th chapter, it speaks, the Most High refers to that, the Babylon, as the land of Edom. And he speaks about the land of Edom, or the land of Babylon, as an altar. What do you do at an altar? You have the holy man stand on the altar and prophesies or speaks or teaches. So this landmass is nothing but an altar. So the prophets are here on top of the altar prophesying. And then after that, then comes the sacrifice. And it's beautiful because Esau can't see it. You know, normally I go to the Bible Hub, and I'll put in commentary. These scriptures that I went through, that we all know about, the ones of you that are veterans in this thing, put them particular scriptures in the commentary. They'll tell you, oh, I was talking about the Antichrist. They don't have the breakdown. They don't, and all praises to Yahweh Shem Yahushua Shem Kakodash, that he has given this thing unto the babes. We are the babes. We didn't have to go to no theological cemetery. And the truth is not in any of these theological cemeteries. How do we know that? Just look at Vocab. Vocab doesn't understand the scriptures. He's beginning to learn scriptures, but he wasted his time. He doesn't understand the prophecies. Point blank, period. Anyway, I'm gonna say Shalom, and it's on to the next one. Yeah, I was talking to Apostle Ryan Lott, because the last video he did, I would call him to ask, who are you specifically talking about? And he mentioned somebody, and particular guy that's not really putting up videos. And I'm pretty sure in one way or another, that's in pretty much all the camps. You know, the scriptures speak about 30-fold, some 30-fold, some 60-fold, some 100-fold. You got some guys that are just on fire, some guys that are not on fire as the fiery guy, and then you have other guys, the 30-fold, which they do so much. And then you got lukewarm guys or even cold guys that don't do anything. So me and I don't talk to Apostle Ryan Lott that long. I'll say a few words and shalom, see you later. So I was saying, well, maybe the brother's losing faith, and this brother's been in this thing for a while, at least 10 years. And you got people up in here that's on fire, and then all of a sudden they lose it. They're not producing. What is that? Hebrews 4, around about the second verse, somewhere in the second, third, fourth verse, it says not being mixed with faith. It speaks about in Hebrews 3, verse 10 on down. You can really read the whole chapter. And then Hebrews 4, from the first verse, it speaks about faith and how don't let it come up short on you. You feel that you're losing faith. You pray to the Most High, and you might even fast. You don't got to tell nobody you're on a fast. King David said, "Take not away from me thy Holy Spirit." Now, King Saul messed up, and when the Spirit was taken away from him, he couldn't get it back. So anyway, with that, like I was saying before I go, I was telling, Apostle Ryan Lott, I said, yeah. I said, I'm gonna let you go because I'm trying to get in the spirit so I can do a video, see if the spirit hits me. So, I thought, and I even said that, I said I may do something on this whole thing that what Biden said earlier today about him being afraid of, of this war between the U.S. and Russia will turn into well, he said in a definite manner. Definitely, if we go to war against them, definitely that will be a definite World War III scenario. And I'm pretty sure he heard the word Armageddon. Anyway, with that, I'm gonna say shalom.